Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Eala quickly shown the door at Qatar Open. Manila, Philippines. Filipina tennis ace Alex Eala had an early exit from the Qatar TotalEnergies Open after falling against qualifier Teresa Valentova, 6-7, 8-6, the 1st of June Monday evening, Manila time. Eala, who reached a career-high ranking of world number 40, was dominated by the world number 48 Czech in the second set after a grueling first-set tiebreak. Valentova seemingly continued to have the number of Eala, as the former defeated the latter in the Japan Women's Open last year. The Filipina actually held a 5-4 and 6-5 leads in the first set, but her opponent climbed out of the hole to force the tiebreak. There, Valentova outlasted Eala in the extended tiebreak. This swung the momentum to the pride of Czechia, who held a 5-0 lead in the second frame. Eala prevented being blanked, 1-5, but the deficit was too great to overcome as Valentova won the match in an hour and 32 minutes. Valentova punched in 3 aces in the match. Eala's exit in Qatar came after the Filipina lefty fell in the quarterfinal round in the Abu Dhabi Open. At the dazzling courts of the Qatar Open in Doha, where desert winds swirl past glass towers and the lights glow like constellations over center court, stories are usually written in sweat, precision, and triumph. But sometimes, the most compelling stories are the briefest ones, the ones that flicker brightly and vanish almost before the crowd has settled into its seats. This year, one such story belonged to Alexandra Eala. At just 18, Alexandra Eala arrived in Doha not as a favorite, nor as a headline act, but as a whisper of promise. She carried with her the pride of the Philippines, the hunger of youth, and the quiet confidence of someone who has grown up under the tropical sun with a racket in hand and a dream in her heart. The draw was unforgiving. The Qatar Open, officially known as the Qatar TotalEnergies Open, is not a gentle proving ground. It is a stage for giants, a battlefield where Grand Slam champions sharpen their edges before the season's greater wars. For a teenager stepping into such an arena, every serve echoes louder, every mistake feels magnified. Eala stepped onto the court beneath the floodlights, her ponytail swaying, her expression calm but alert. Across the net stood a seasoned opponent, the kind who has faced roaring crowds and silenced them, who has navigated pressure like a second language. The gulf in experience was visible, but so was Eala's resolve. The first few games carried a spark. Eala's left-handed forehand cracked through the cool evening air, drawing murmurs of appreciation from the crowd. She chased down balls with fearless abandon, sliding, stretching, refusing to yield easy points. For a moment, the desert night seemed to pause, as if considering whether an upset might bloom here in Doha. But tennis is merciless. At this level, hesitation is punished, and opportunity rarely knocks twice. The rallies grew longer. The margins grew thinner. A missed backhand here. A double fault there. The veteran across the net adjusted, tightened, absorbed the storm and returned it with greater force. Eala fought, but the scoreboard began to tilt decisively. The applause remained respectful, yet the tension shifted. What had begun as possibility slowly hardened into inevitability. Experience prevailed over exuberance. Precision subdued promise. And in less than 2 hours, it was over. Eala had been shown the door. There was no dramatic collapse, no spectacle of despair. Just a final handshake at the net, a brief exchange of words, and a composed walk back to her chair. The desert wind carried the faint sound of encouragement from a pocket of Filipino supporters who had come to witness her ascent, or at least, a step along it. In the press room later, the questions were predictable. Was it overwhelming? What did you learn? How do you move forward? Eala answered with maturity beyond her years. She spoke of growth. Of lessons. Of gratitude for the opportunity to test herself against one of the best. There was disappointment in her voice, yes, but not defeat. Because for Eala, this was not an ending. Being quickly shown the door at the Qatar Open was not a closing chapter, it was a footnote in a much longer story. Tennis history is littered with early exits that preceded greatness. The courts of Doha have seen champions stumble before they soared. The desert is a place of extremes, blistering days and cool nights, harsh winds and serene horizons. It is also a place of resilience. Seeds that survive its climate grow strong roots. As Eala left the stadium that evening, the city lights of Doha shimmered against the Gulf waters. The tournament would move on. The favorites would continue their march. The headlines would shift to bigger names and deeper runs. But somewhere in the quiet aftermath, a young player carried something more valuable than a trophy, experience under fire. In tennis, progress is rarely linear. It comes in increments, a better serve percentage, a steadier return, a calmer mind at breakpoint. Losses at the highest level expose weaknesses, but they also illuminate the path forward. For Eala, the Qatar Open was a mirror. It reflected the distance still to travel, the physical strength to build, the tactical nuance to refine, the mental armor to fortify. Yet it also reflected her courage to stand there in the first place, unflinching beneath the glare of expectation. Being quickly shown the door can sting. It can bruise pride and test belief. But it can also ignite something deeper, a quiet vow to return stronger. And perhaps, one day, she will. Perhaps she will walk back onto those same courts in Doha, no longer a whisper of promise but a contender whose presence commands silence. Perhaps the floodlights will once again frame her silhouette, not as a hopeful outsider, but as a force. For now, the loss remains a snapshot, a young athlete learning the unforgiving rhythm of elite competition. The desert night closed around the stadium, and the tournament moved forward without her. But careers are not defined by single exits. They are defined by how one responds to them. In the grand narrative of tennis, Alexandra Eala's swift departure from the Qatar Open may barely register. Yet within the heart of a competitor, such moments carve resolve into character. And somewhere, far from the glittering skyline of Doha, on a practice court where no cameras wait and no crowds murmur, a young player is already preparing for her return. Because being shown the door is not the same as being shut out forever.